Hi, have you been wondering what wicking beds are and how they work? If so, you've come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what's going on inside a wicking bed, and then I'm going to take you through the steps to build your own wicking bed in a metal trough on rolling casters so you can move it about on your property. Let's get started.
Before we get started building, let's just take a look at what a wicking bed looks like on the inside. You can see here that we have a waterproof container into which we create a reservoir of water at the base. We do this by using stiff perforated piping. The pipe needs to be stiff because it's resisting the weight of all that soil above it. The pipe is also perforated to ensure that water can flow above the line of the pipe into the scoria layer that meets the soil. Between the scoria layer and the soil layer, you'll see a fabric that we've placed to allow for the transfer of water, but not soil sediment. We don't want soil sediment occluding our water reservoir. To the right, you can see there's a downspout that we create using PVC pipe. This downspout delivers water into the reservoir. There's also a smaller PVC outflow pipe to the side. This ensures that the bed has proper drainage and won't become waterlogged in heavy rains. You may also notice this diagram shows a worm bin in the wicking bed. This is optional, but it's a great way to ensure your wicking bed soil stays alive and vital. In a wicking bed, water is stored in a reservoir at the base of the bed. Capillary action draws the water up through the soil where the plant roots can reach it. To understand this capillary action, put some water into a glass jar, then place the corner of a strip of paper towel into the water. You'll see that water creeping up through the pore spaces in the towel, eventually moistening the whole thing. This is effectively what's happening inside your wicking bed. The water in the reservoir wicks up through the soil to where the plants really need it, the roots. Notice how the towel is very moist, almost saturated at the bottom, and the capillary action seems to slow down as the water creeps vertically.
The beauty of the wicking bed is that because you're watering from the bottom up instead of from the top, you're not losing water to evaporation. That water wicks up to about an inch from the top, and that means the very top of your soil stays relatively dry. This is a bonus, actually, because if weed seeds happen to blow into your garden bed, they don't get the opportunity to germinate because there's no moisture there for the seeds to do that. It also means that when you plant seeds in the wicking bed, you'll need to top water just to get their roots started about that far down. But once they get to this level, they'll take off on their own, and you don't need to water them from the top anymore. We have a large reservoir, which means that you only really need to water every 3 to 4 weeks, even in the summertime. Because of the weed and the water issues that are resolved by using wicking beds, I recommend them highly for school gardens, which are left vacant oftentimes and unattended over the summer months. Instead of coming back to dry, weedy beds, you could come back to plants that have actually stayed alive over the summertime and a lack of weeds.
There are several different ways we can create a wicking bed. Many methods require the use of a pond liner placed inside of a wooden raised bed. I initially chose to use a trough after researching the cost of lumber and pond liner and finding that it was more cost effective and a lot less labor intensive for me to use one waterproof trough instead. So that's the method I'm going to show you here. I also really like the aesthetic of this trough. What do you think?
Okay, ingredient number 1. This is a 2-foot by 2-foot by 4-foot galvanized metal trough. It cost me $89 at the Home Depot. You see it's got a plug. We're not going to mess with that. We're going to leave the plug in place. When you purchase it, you want to inspect all the way around. Make sure it's not dented, that there's no leaks of any kind already. I have to say some of the troughs that were stacked were not in perfect condition. So just be careful to look all the way around before you purchase. The next ingredient in our wicking trough is going to be perforated, corrugated drain pipe. This is 3-inch diameter, about 2 lengths, 10 feet long. The reason I opted for these was they were a little stiffer. You can see the perforations that's necessary. And in case you're at Home Depot, there you go. The next ingredient in our wicking bed are 2 lengths of PVC pipe. You could have gone 1, but my preference is to have a narrower pipe. This is 1 inch round. Narrower pipe, which is going to be our drainage pipe, and then a larger pipe. This is 1 1/4 inch. The wider pipe makes it easier to put a hose in there because this will be our downspout. This is going to deliver water down into the base of the trough. And this one, the 1 inch pipe, is going to be where the drainage comes out of the side of the trough. Okay, now we have what makes it a rolling wicking trough. We're going to be creating a base out of treated wood. We're going to glue that base onto the base of the metal trough. We would never screw these directly into the metal trough because that would compromise the integrity of the trough and it would create a whole nightmare of leaking. We're going to use this Liquid Nails heavy duty construction adhesive to glue our wooden base onto the bottom of the metal trough. We're going to be using these 4 rolling casters. They are swiveling and rolling, and they all have a braking mechanism. You need a minimum of 2 of the wheels to have a braking mechanism. 4 is a little overkill, but that's what I could get when I was ordering the heavy dutiest swiveling rolling casters I could find. These are 5/16 inch galvanized bolts, screws. These are going to go into the treated wood, the treated lumber that is going to be glued, not screwed, into the bottom of the wicking trough. Yay! And let's make sure we can access the brakes. Awesome. Okay, now it's time to put the base onto the trough. I want to just point something out first. When we drilled, we made sure to sink the screws. They are sunk well and truly. See how deep they are? That way, when the weight of the trough is on it, none of those screw ends are going to perforate through the metal. So now we use construction glue. It's called Liquid Nails. Is it working? Yeah. That's good. That's. Ooh. This is just to set it. Looks like a meringue. It totally looks like a meringue. We can do another tutorial on how to make a great meringue. Into your backyard chicken eggs. Okay, we've got 2 people now.
That's good.
We want it completely over the, more towards you, Leith. A little less towards you.
I'm good here.
Do you guys see any wood hanging out anywhere on the edges?
No, that's pretty good.
Okay.
That's good enough.
Thank you, boys. Okay, here we have the inside of the trough. we are establishing our water reservoir. And to hold the space for the water, we've put in this 3-inch perforated, corrugated landscape tubing. Let me get in here and take a look. See the perforations? We want water to be able to get in, but we don't want a bunch of rocks or particulate from the growing medium to get in there.
This 3/4 inch gravel is the scoria layer I'm going to add to infill the open spaces in that reservoir. And I don't want them to get into the corrugated pipe.
So one of the ways that we're going to make sure we don't get anything occluding the space that we want to reserve for water is we're going to wrap the ends in fly screen. You see that? That's what I've been working on. I'm just using zip ties and fly screen. I'm doing it to every piece that I put in, as you can see.
While we're on the topic of fly screen, there's a pivotal step I missed out on including in this video, and that is to tape fly screen around the inside edge of the PVC pipe that we use for the water outfall, for the drainage. That is to prevent mosquitoes from flying up into the water reservoir to lay their eggs. So because I forgot that step, I'm going to have to use a screen taped around the outside of my drain pipe. It won't be as aesthetically pleasing, but that's okay. Now we're going to use this scary looking tool to drill a hole in the area of the trough that we want to drain the water out from. This area should be just north of the reservoir that we've created so that our reservoir doesn't lose water, but anything above the line of the reservoir will drain out.
Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
What you're seeing me do here is use a metal file to smooth the edges of that hole my husband just drilled. There are some really sharp metal bits that are produced when you drill that way, and I don't want him to rip his fingers up while he's applying the silicone sealant to the inside and the outside. He's creating an extra strong seal. It's waterproof, and it's going to keep the galvanized trough intact. I also used some pipe cutters to cut that PVC pipe. It doesn't need to stick out any further than that. I've cut the downspout at a 45-degree angle at the bottom so that water can flow out easily. And then I hold it in place while we pour the scoria in. I happen to have some leftover fly screen, so for some reason I decided to put it in, and my husband then opened another bag of gravel and poured it on. And I didn't have a problem with that. I wouldn't have needed to put that second bag of gravel on, but that's okay. And the next step is to use that landscape fabric.
Kitty. No, don't rip holes in my landscaping fabric.
I'm sure there are better brands of landscape fabric than this one for the job, but this I had on hand, and so I just triple layered it, which made the job a lot longer and more laborious. This, I should say, is also happening over the same day that I put in the silicone sealant, and I'm not going to put any moisture into this trough for 24 hours to allow that silicone sealant to dry. Now that we're ready to fill our trough with growing medium, there's a very specific recipe that we follow. It's not just your standard garden soil. It's a special mix to encourage that capillary action. 2 cubic feet of perlite, 1 cubic foot of worm castings, 2 cups of Epsom salt, 3 cubic feet of compost, and 3 cubic feet of sphagnum peat moss or coconut coir, which is a more environmentally sustainable medium, which works just as well in a wicking bed. And it means that you don't need to include agricultural lime in order to adjust the pH. Peat moss is acidic, and so if you use peat moss, you will also use 3 cups of agricultural lime. We find it really helpful to break the materials in half. We use half of the largest 3 cubic foot peat moss and add half of the other amendments to it, and mix that up in a smaller area and put that into the wicking bed. And then we do the same with the second half of it. And soon you'll see I begin to get the hose and water as we're putting this into the wicking bed. The reason I do that is that peat moss especially is hydrophobic, and once it dries out, it's really hard to rehydrate. But for the entire wicking bed, whether you use coconut coir or peat moss, doesn't matter. You want it all to be moist at the very outset, at the very beginning, going into the bed. The water will percolate through the wicking medium into the reservoir, and then it will drain out the side, and you'll know that it's had enough water to fill up the reservoir. After you initially wet the soil, when you put it into the wicking bed, that is when you can begin to fill the water through the downspout into the reservoir.
So we've wet the entire bed from the top, and now, oh, my son really wanted to stick his face in it. Ow! Hey, turn it, let me see you. Come here, you come over here.
No child was harmed in the making of this video.
Okay, so as we're watering the top of the wicking bed, we keep coming back and looking at the downspout. And when that starts leaking water, we'll know that we've come all the way through the top. We've wet everything, and the reservoir at the bottom is full. And my son is still gagging. He's still gagging. Finally, it's taken about half an hour. I watered it thoroughly, and then I got tired of waiting, so I planted blueberries, and I mulched the top of it with coffee chaff. Ta-da!
Remember how there was a worm bin plonked into the trough I showed you in the image at the beginning of the video? Well, obviously I forgot to put it in while I was busy watching my son stick his face in the wet soil. So now I'm going to show you how I add a worm bin into the trough. I take a standard nursery pot and I cut out the base. Then I drill holes on all sides of that pot so that worms can pass in and out of it easily. I sink it in the bed, I put red wiggler worms in it, and it's that simple. Adding worms to your bed is a great way to divert kitchen scraps from your trash and turn them into a healthy amendment for your wicking trough soil. You may not know this, but worm castings actually recycle the nutrients from your kitchen scraps, plus they contain thousands of different species of bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and other microbes to give life to your soil. The bonus is that they deliver their castings or poop as they move throughout the trough, so you don't have to do it. I recommend putting a worm bin into every garden bed that you have. Here you can see how my wicking bed looks today. Notice the worm bin that is sunk in the middle of it. I put a little bit of fiber over the top because worms don't like the sun. I stick my food down in there. Every morning I put in a banana peel or so. And here you can see another thing I didn't mention, which is that you should keep that downspout covered. I just use an old upturned flower pot. You may notice I pulled out my blueberries and I opted instead to grow lettuces, kale, some radishes, and so on. The continually moist soil is perfect for propagating some scented geranium in here. But I learned the hard way that blueberries don't like the constant moisture at their feet. This is a good reminder that not every plant will thrive in a wicking bed. But don't let this dissuade you. Most every other plant I've tried in this bed has thrived. Herbs, lettuces, flowers, cucumbers, and even milkweed do well. I sure hope that you're going to give wicking beds a try. They're not just a water-wise option for gardens and drought situations, They also allow you to grow in areas plagued by gophers, or where mature trees have root systems that dominate the soil, or even in areas without any soil at all, like paved patios or asphalted schoolyards. With the addition of rolling casters, these troughs can be moved about, and that makes them even more useful. I like to move my troughs around my property with the seasons and according to the sunlight requirements of what I'm growing. I want to say thank you to Mitan Kim, who first introduced me to wicking beds years ago, and of course to these two cool kids and this hunk who are always happy to help me in the garden. Happy gardening!